Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports.
The business of sports can be intimidating or hard for a startup to break into.
We really appreciate when our owners are actually there, with us through the journey.
Teams, ours especially, have been very intentional to diversify at all levels of the company.
I think we're in the golden years for the NFL and college football.
Our demographic reach has continued to expand.
This is going to be really unlocking the streaming platform for sports fans.
Sports valuations are rising. We'll see when they peak.
You don't have to be the best in your sport to make a whole ton of money.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports show where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr.
And I'm Damian Sassower.
Scarlet Food, that's when you're the important people on assignment. That's what's happening. She'll be back, though. Coming up on the show, we'll wrap up this year's Summer Games and look ahead to the Olympics coming to the U.S.
That's right. The 2034 Winter Games will be in Salt Lake City. And we'll talk with the president and CEO of the Salt Lake City, Utah Committee for the Games, Fraser Bullock.
The nice thing about many of our venues is they're mountains. We don't have to put mountains in place, and we have fabulous ski resorts who become our partners in hosting the world. But every single one of our permanent venues that we need is in place, including the Olympic Village, including opening and closing ceremonies, speed skating. Everything is there. So it is a money saver. We are the best place, I believe, economically in the world to host games because of that existing infrastructure.
We'll dive into the Winter Games in Utah on the way here on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. But first, we've got the Summer Games coming to Hollywood a little sooner.
That's right. And the NFL is excited because, Michael Barr, for the very first time, we may have some football.
Oh, man. To take us through how the NFL is getting ready for flag football, making its debut in the Summer Games in L.A. and more, we welcome friend of the show, Bloomberg US Sports business reporter, Randall Williams. Hello, Randall.
What's happening?
Well, let's start, man. It's like, hey, the NFL and the Olympics, who knew that was going to be kind of a marriage?
Well, I'd say the NFL has been, they've been trying to grow flag football for the past 8 years or so. And now I think it got put in the Olympics games last year. And so this will be a big moment for them.
So, Randall, I've seen flag football. Apparently, the field is only 25 yards wide. It's 50 yards long. There's just two 20-minute halves, all that kind of stuff. Are other countries playing flag football right now that way? Take me through that.
They are. I think it comes in different formats, but when the Olympics happen and people see it's 25 by 50, and if NFL players are allowed to play in it, then I think that model will be adopted worldwide because that'll be the model that people see. So I think, and I'd say that people are definitely playing it. It isn't as popular as basketball or as of course, European football as well. But it's growing. It's definitely growing.
No doubt. But, here's my other question for you. Okay, so maybe you have some men out there playing flag football, but what about the women?
That's where it's big. Women is where flag football has seen the most growth because with every other sport that I've mentioned, basketball, football, even lacrosse, women can play that. There's women's basketball, there's women's soccer. In football, there isn't something like that has been universally recognized, but flag football offers that opportunity. And actually, it's probably a better fit with women than I think it is with men, because with men, it's like if you're playing flag football, then why don't you play tackle? And that doesn't mean that there can't be professional male flag football players. But I'm just saying the question that the common people are going to ask if they see men's football players versus women.
Well, that brings up the next question. Like the NBA, you'll see the players who just had one heck of a year basketball-wise in the Olympics, the U.S. team. Will we see something like that where we have NFL players heading to the flag football Olympic team?
There hasn't been any conversations, according to people that I spoke with at the PA, and the NFL is very excited about it, and all parties are very excited about the opportunity for NFL players to play. But there hasn't been any conversations yet. Do I think something will happen? Of course. But what happens? I think that based on how NFL owners were around, the COVID negotiations with when seasons were almost canceled and some of these things, if a player gets injured on an Olympic playing field, that's not an NFL sanctioned event. So there's a world where if this isn't negotiated right, that someone's contract could be null and void. Now, do I think that happens? Absolutely not. I think the PA and the NFL will strike a deal where there will be exemptions and insurance will go in and there will be injury guarantees and yada, yada, yada. But as of right now, no. Do I think it'll happen by 2028? Yes.
Now, Michael, we have an educated audience, and they know Randall very well, and they know that Randall is second to none when it comes to, new franchises, the purchase of them, the creation of them, and the cost for them. So talk to me, Randall. Is this going to be like pickleball? I mean, women's flag football teams, is there going to be, Patrick Mahomes and, Sauce Gardner and these guys, Aaron Rodgers, buying up these teams or the rights to these teams? I mean, is that something you're hearing yet?
No, I haven't heard that, but I think it depends on how it happens. Because if the NFL decides that they want to start a women's flag football league, then I imagine that most of the ownership rules that the league has will carry on to the women's flag football league. If it is an independent body of whoever, a billionaire comes in and tries to start something or attempts to start something, then I think that this could be something where celebrities jump in very early and try to make $1 off it. And why? Because it's cheap. We're talking about a 25 by 50 field, and all you need is a football, flags, and cleats. That's it. It's probably one of the cheapest sports out there. I mean, that's one of the appeals of European football and basketball is that you need a ball and shoes. So I think it has a ways to go, but people are talking about it, and I expect it to happen sometime soon.
Well, you see that, Michael Barr, there is hope for us. We are going to have our own women flag football team. We'll include Scarlet in this, maybe. Randall's going to help us set it up. I mean, this is it. We've been waiting for this for years. I mean, we've been talking about this for years.
I can be your entire O-line.
Be the O-line coach.
I'll say this. There's some growth that needs to happen at the grassroots level. There's 12 states who have sanctioned this as a varsity level sport. It's not wide D1 for Division I colleges yet, but Charlie Baker wants it to happen. And I think everybody wants to capitalize on this Olympics moment in 2028 because of the fact that if you don't, when is the next flag football moment going to happen? There's no guarantee that it's going to be in the 2032 Brisbane Games. So, and it's domestically here. It's in LA. If it happens to be in SoFi Stadium, even better. But everyone wants to capitalize on this so that it can energize kids who are playing this that want to be able to grow up in Oklahoma and then go to Oklahoma University and have a women's flag football program. Now, they don't have that yet, but this is the moment for the league to galvanize around all these things.
I got to bring this up. We're talking about the NFL Sunday Ticket antitrust suit. Hey, it had been ruled for $14 billion, and then all of a sudden, poof, game over. What happened?
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge win for the league. The judge obviously overturned the ruling, and so as it stands right now, the league has won. Now, I'd say they've won one of the battles, but there's a long road to go, and you know how these things play out in court. They can take a lot of twists and turns.
So take our audience through that. I mean, this is about monopolization and unlawful agreements. Is that right, Randall? I mean, I believe going back to 2015, I think the NFL and DirecTV were sued by Sunday Ticket subscribers, I believe, for some sort of conspiracy. I mean, I thought a judge had already awarded some damages there, no? I mean, or was nothing ever paid out of that?
Nothing has been paid out yet. There have been, I'd have to go back and familiarize myself with the process a little more. I've been head deep on some of this private equity stuff. But the bottom line is that there are cheaper ways to distribute NFL Sunday Ticket. The NFL did not choose that, and it's because they control the package.
I see. Yeah.
If it had gone the other way, then teams had the opportunity to sell their own package, where if you were a Green Bay Packers fan, maybe the Packers are able to sell their games individually. That's not going to happen with the latest ruling. Sunday Ticket will be what it is on YouTube TV. But if it were overturned a second time, I guess this is, then it's back in the team's hand. Do I expect it to happen? I'm not sure.
Best way to describe that is that, yeah, there are cheaper ways to drive a car, but why would the Cadillac dealer sell you a Pinto when you can have this Cadillac right here? So, yeah, that's basically what it is. And I guess the bottom line is, Randall, the NFL is king, and there will always be king when it comes to the sports four major food groups.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at Sportico's valuations, I believe it's 20 billion in revenue that the NFL hit. I think at 20.9 around there. And the other two leagues, based on their latest valuations, were the MLB and the NBA were around 10, 10.8, 10.9, maybe it was 11, around that range. But if you think about that, they're close to doubling the two biggest leagues next to them revenue. That's nuts.
Well, and you bring it up, is that, speaking of valuation of teams, the Dallas Cowboys still the most valuable team in the NFL, Randall?
They are. I mean, Jerry was the first to start this whole real estate thing around the stadium, and he's reaping the benefits of it. Everyone's trying. We see all these stadium deals happening. It's because everyone wants to activate around the stadium. It isn't just about a stadium. If you think about an NFL stadium versus an NBA arena or an MLB stadium, those arenas and stadiums from the MLB and the NBA are in use much more than an NFL arena. But if you have real estate around it, a practice field, an auditorium or something to that extent, then you can use those in the off season. You can have artists come in, you can have different festivals and tournaments and things like that. But if you don't own any of that, then you don't see the benefits of it. So when you're looking at the Cleveland Browns or the Chicago Bears or whoever else wants a stadium, because everyone wants one nowadays, all of them want the real estate around it. It's just a lot of money. We're talking about public-private partnerships, and it all depends on the city. If the city wants it to happen, the city and the culture of the city, I'd say. In Jacksonville, this happened. Florida, and in Florida, football is like a religion. In Kansas City and in Chicago, it's a tougher sell.
Well, Michael Barr, I know one person who is well aware of the amount of money Jerry Jones has made on his stadium and the outskirts of it, and that is CeeDee Lamb, who is holding out of camp. I mean, what is going on with my man CeeDee, and what's going to take to get him back?
Hey, man, it's like, come on, CeeDee, come on back. We'll hook you up, man.
I mean, who's Batman and who's Robin in that relationship, right?
I mean, that's a pricing thing. Justin Jefferson deserved to be paid the highest receiver in the NFL, and I think CeeDee had an incredible year last year. But there's no metric that you can say that CeeDee Lamb deserves to be paid, unless it's just like I'm young and I want to reset the market. But I expect him to get 34, right under Justin Jefferson's 35, and maybe it's 34 and a half. But if he got 35.1, I think that would be a shocker to us all.
Come on, guys. We could start a flag football team. We'll call us the Bloomberg Bros, man, and we'll go out there and play our hearts out, man. Bloomberg US sports business reporter Randall Williams, you are the man. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you for the time, as always.
Up next, we talk more football and how smaller schools could try to mimic a deal a Florida university made with pop star Pitbull. That is straight ahead on the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports show where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Damian Sassower. Scarlet Fu is on assignment this week.
Florida International University is renaming its football stadium. Renaming its football stadium after a pop star. It'll be called Pitbull Stadium after the Mr. 305 himself, Michael Barr.
All right, wait. I'm old. 305, what does that mean?
That is the area code for Miami-Dade, I believe.
Oh, all right, fine. Anyway, in exchange, I thought it was something even hipper. Pitbull will pay around $6 million over 5 years and write a new school anthem for FIU. It's how the school is looking to drum up some excitement for a team that won only 4 games last season. Bloomberg Opinion columnist Adam Minter wrote a piece on the deal, and he's here now to take us through it. Adam, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports. Pitbull signs a deal with FIU, and now the smaller schools are like, hey, man, what is this? So, Adam, what is going on here?
Well, the simple version is that Pitbull is giving FIU $6 million over 5 years to put his name on the stadium, the football stadium, the 23,000-seat football stadium. In return, he's going to get access to the stadium 10 days a year. He's going to be able to, film on campus at games. He has a charity, so he's going to be able to bring kids from his K through 12 program to games and get them internships. So that's the superficial level of it. But for FIU, it's something much bigger because FIU is a mid-major school. So those are the schools just below the well, I guess we call it the Power Four now. It's no longer the Power Five. The big schools that we all think of, the Michigans, the Ohio's, the Alabamas. It's a tier below. They tend to be good basketball schools. But as college athletics changes, they're getting squeezed financially, and they're getting squeezed also just in terms of attention. So Pitbull, in theory, gives them the chance not to necessarily make money off Pitbull directly, $6 million, but he brings attention to the campus, maybe gives them an opportunity to earn some money via merchandise, greater attention, bring in some recruits, and make the school cool. It's the best they can do, because these schools facing NIL and now the House settlement, which is going to cost it millions of dollars in money to pay past Division I athletes, the financial squeeze is really tough.
So Adam, take us through the deal. Exactly how much is Pitbull playing for the privilege?
$1.2 million per year for 5 years.
Interesting. So there you go, Michael Barr. That's how much it's going to cost for you and I to put our name on Miami-Dade College down in Florida. I mean, it's not that much money. We can pull our resources.
The check that I have in my bank account for FIU, one of those letters can be eliminated, man, if they came to me.
So Adam, here's my question then. I mean, is this something we can expect to see more of, specifically for some of the smaller schools out there, and specifically as NIL really, comes on the scene, right? I mean, those schools that are first movers here, I mean, I could see J-Lo, I could see, a lot of, rock stars, Hollywood, celebrities, et cetera, lending, their own image, their own name to kind of help their alma maters, or any university for that matter, get some athletes and really kind of expand their brand and footprint.
Why not? I mean, there's only one Pitbull, and what's unique about this deal is just the footprint he has in Miami. I mean, he's Mr. 305. It's the area code down there. He's an icon in that town. So him associating with FIU immediately raises FIU's profile. I don't think it necessarily does anything for Pitbull's profile. You can't get much bigger in Miami than this guy. So it's unique in that sense. But yes, I mean, why not if you're a mid-major school belonging to Conference USA or any of these other mid-major conferences? Why wouldn't you seek out an athlete, especially with the sports celebrity access so strong now? Why wouldn't you seek out popular alumni? $1.2 million, as you guys just indicated. I mean, it might be a lot for us, but for a guy like Pitbull, it's really not that much money, and that just sort of gets at what's important here is that he's bringing a brand to the school, and hopefully by that way indirectly attracting other forms of revenue and attention, maybe TV, and that's the payoff. So I'm sure you have schools across the mid-majors looking at their alumni list saying, who's a celebrity here who would like to put their name on our basketball arena, and somebody making a phone call.
If this is a success, athletic departments across America are going to be like, hey, maybe we need to also call up Ice Cube, man. It's like, maybe this will work, man. I mean, this is a big deal.
It's a really big deal. And again, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I personally think it's going to work. I mean, I've spent time in Miami, and Pitbull is as big as you can get in Miami. I off the top of my head, maybe in LA you can fit, the Red Hot Chili Peppers Stadium or something like that, Ice-T Stadium, something like that. I mean, where you have that local celebrity who really is interested in sports and can sync with with a smaller school. That would work, but why not? And I think what's really interesting about this is just how FIU is getting creative. I mean, the old ways of doing business, and let's face it was business in college sports, aren't going to work anymore. So you've got to be innovative and creative. You had, a few months ago, Conference USA and the various Group of Five schools, talking about, hey, can we sell the branding rights to the conference? Could it be, and this is just me, this didn't, so far as I know, get thrown out there, but, Pitbull Conference USA. I mean, people were thinking in creative waves. So why not this? This seems to make a lot more sense, especially because, stadium naming rights have been sold for years.
Yeah, but Adam, this isn't just a naming rights deal now, is it? I mean, Pitbull's getting a little bit more. He's getting the right to use the stadium, I think, for a few days each year for events. I even think he gets the right to name who performs at halftime during the games or in postgame. Talk to us a little bit about, what else is in it for Pitbull.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that what you just mentioned was really interesting, the halftime act. I mean, he is an entrepreneur. He has, he has his own acts, and he is, I believe he's being, under the terms of the deal, he's the official entrepreneur of FIU athletics. But as an entrepreneur, the right to put his new act on the field at halftime, that's a tremendous benefit. What would that cost him otherwise? That's a really nice benefit for Pitbull. His vodka, which I didn't know about, called Voli 305. It's now
I didn't even know he has got vodka.
He's got vodka.
I'm sorry, I sounded too excited there, but wow, okay.
Well, there you go. Yeah, Voli 305. Get the area code in there again. It's now the preferred vodka at Pitbull Stadium. I mean, how many college football stadiums have a preferred vodka anyway? I mean, again, there you go. Is like the school FIU is trying to push the boundaries a little bit. So it's exciting.
Adam, I have another question for you. I mean, you think about this, right? Athletes, celebrities, and other wealthy individuals. I mean, what this deal sets precedent for is for them to really not just drive, put their name on the stadium, but to drive stadium revenues, right? And more importantly, it implies that maybe not in the case of Pitbull, but going, in the future, perhaps, some wealthy individuals who lend their name will have, the ability to drive, the team itself, where the money goes, is it going to go to basketball or football or lacrosse or swimming? You know what I'm saying? So it just is very interesting what this opens the door for. It opens the door, quite frankly, for the wealthy, for those who have money and are willing to lend their name to really drive forward the way some of these, universities and their athletic departments are run.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I mean, we've all been hearing for, more than a year now that private equity is circling college sports. This is a different kind of deal, but on the other hand, is it really? I mean, we just saw Howard University, the basketball coach come out and say, 1/3 of the basketball program is for sale for $100 million. And, I think if, and he said maybe it's private equity, maybe it's an individual, but presumably if you're a fund or a wealthy individual putting $100 million into Howard with the idea that it'll upgrade the stadium, provide some NIL and maybe, some other cash just to make things go better as the college expands it, you're going to have some say. And so, so far as I know, and so far as anybody knows, Pitbull isn't asking, for the right to choose the coach yet. But, it's not hard to imagine that, somebody who's getting, say, as Pitbull is 2 suites for games, starts to, and it's been implied that he's going to at least help out by making appearances, and I assume that will help recruit students and maybe even help with NIL. I mean, why wouldn't he want, if he wants, greater say in the team? I think it's all a very hazy line now between with all this new money coming into college athletics.
Now, I believe FIU is a public research university, right? They're not a private school,
yes.
Are they?
Right, that's correct. They're a public research university.
So hear me out. I mean, is there any way, I'm just throwing it out there, right, that, people whose tax dollars in Florida, which there aren't a lot of them, obviously, go to basically funding FIU, and that, and they're not happy that with Pitbull, they disagree with who Pitbull is, maybe what he stands for, et cetera. Is there any way for, I guess taxpayers or residents of Florida kind of fight back on this? I mean, is that something that obviously won't happen, but something that potentially could happen in the future?
I mean, I think that's a really interesting question. I'm guessing that FIU was very carefully vetted Pitbull, before they got into this, and he's somebody with a really good reputation. He does a lot of philanthropy in the community.
Of course.
The only thing anybody can, the only complaints I've seen is some people don't like his videos. They're a little too sexy for some taste, but that's the music business. But he attended Miami Coral Park High School. He's done so much for the community. I mean, he's a Cuban national hero. I mean, he's an amazing person. So there's no question about it. Not to mention he's incredibly talented, right? So, but it's just what I guess I guess my concern is maybe not in the case of Pitbull, but as more and more people start lending their names to stadiums and whatnot, it just kind of opens the door for this kind of mishigas on a forward basis, Adam. No? For sure. And I think that's a real risk, especially with the the greater discourse around higher education and colleges and universities these days. I mean, the for lack of a better term, the wrong celebrity could certainly generate some political heat. And, I think most public research universities find their funding through state legislatures and some, national funding organizations. But, state legislatures, if the wrong celebrity ends up atop, a football stadium's name, you could see legislators perhaps threatening to withhold funds. As for alumni, I think that probably cuts both ways. I mean, sure, there's going to be maybe alumni who don't like Pitbull, but there's bound to be a lot of alumni who are really big Pitbull fans and maybe double down on their donation with the hope of getting access to that Pitbull fundraiser. So, kind of the annual Pitbull fundraiser, so it kind of cuts both ways.
We love you, Adam Minter. Adam Minter of Bloomberg Opinion. Read his latest column, Pitbull FIU Deal Gets Smaller Schools Off the Bench, online at Bloomberg.com/opinion or via OPIN Go on the Bloomberg terminal. Up next, we turn back to the Olympics and talk with the president and CEO of the Salt Lake City, Utah Committee for the Games about the 2034 Winter Olympics. That is straight ahead on the Bloomberg Business of Sports and Bloomberg Radio around the world.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports show, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Damian Sassower. Scarlet is on assignment. We have the Olympics in the U.S. twice in the next decade. First in L.A. for the Summer Games in 2028, and again in Salt Lake City for the 2034 Winter Games. To take us through how Salt Lake City got tapped for the 34 Winter Games and how it's preparing, we welcome Fraser Bullock. He's president and CEO of the Salt Lake City, Utah Committee for the Games and co-founding managing partner of Sorensen Capital. Fraser, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Wonderful to be here.
Well, I know this sounds like that old stupid question, but how do you feel?
Well, it's been a long journey because at closing ceremonies in 2002, it was so wonderful. I thought to myself, we've got to do this again. It was such a special time. And so here we are after 22 years of work that we've secured the games for 2034. So we are absolutely thrilled.
So, Fraser, you have to take me through this process, right? I mean, the International Olympic Committee, when did it start for you for this new round, for the 2034 games? I mean, how long have you and your team been working on securing the games?
Well, I would say informally, 22 years.
Wow.
A little more formally, 10 years, but formally 5 years because we had to be selected by the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, which we were in 2018, and at the end of 2018. So we were selected as the U.S. candidate to be put forward. And so step by step, with the new process, it's very much a partnership with the International Olympic Committee, and here we are.
The thing about the Salt Lake City Games that I loved in 2002 was wintertime in Utah. It is the perfect backdrop for the games. And would I be mistaken if I said that it is also a money saver because a lot of the sites that were used for the 2002 games will probably be used again for these games?
Well, the nice thing about many of our venues is they're mountains.
Yeah.
And they're already here. We don't have to put mountains in place. And we have fabulous ski resorts who become our partners in hosting the world. But every single one of our permanent venues that we need is in place, including the Olympic Village, including opening and closing ceremonies, speed skating. Everything is there. So it is a money saver. We are the best place, I believe, economically in the world to host games because of that existing infrastructure.
Well, Fraser, you were COO and CFO of the Salt Lake Organizing Committee back in 2002. So, you're familiar with the business story and you're well familiar with the fact that of all the winter games we've probably seen since, not one has been profitable except yours. So talk to us a little bit about what makes Salt Lake different in that respect from a commercial standpoint. What makes Salt Lake City profitable? And then you look at some of these other, host cities like Nagano, et cetera, and things kind of fell short a bit.
Well, it's a philosophy of must have versus nice to have. And so we really focus on what's essential to be able to do this and to put on the games. And it's really a dynamic process because you don't know what your revenues are going to be until they're in the door. And a lot of the revenues don't come until a year out or 2 years out, whereas you've committed to spending money 5 years out. So it's really the estimation process, the continual refinement, but we use the philosophy of must-have versus nice-to-have, where we said, okay, we're going to spend money on the things we know to put on the games. But then we said, if we have money left over, then we're going to spend it on these nice-to-haves to really dress up the games. And fortunately, through that philosophy, we did have some money left over. We put in the best fireworks in history and dressed up our city with these entire buildings with these building wraps. But yet we still had $100 million left over at the end to show a profit.
Well, Fraser, before Salt Lake actually was awarded the games, Michael Barr and I were looking at ski off, ski on, Park City, Deer Valley, and I need to ask you this because the impact of having the Olympics on local real estate prices is not insignificant. So talk to us a little bit about that. What do you think the impact on local renters, Airbnbs are going to be in and about the area? I mean, can we expect it to be profitable or unforgettable, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You go back to 2002, I think Utah was discovered a little bit back then because it's always been this beautiful, wonderful, natural winter wonderland and southern Utah. So it's got this natural beauty. And so things got discovered a little bit back in 2002. And so we had increases in real estate values, et cetera. But I think at this point, Utah's pretty much been discovered in terms of what it is. But during the games period, obviously, things are going to be at full occupancy, Airbnbs, and maybe there's some incremental real estate appreciation. But for the most part, I think Utah has been discovered. People know what a wonderful place it is to live. And so we'll see most of the bump just during the games, but I don't think much post games.
Without getting into, I don't want to get into any controversies between Paris and Salt Lake City, but your thoughts about Paris and the just recently wrapped up games there.
Well, I thought Paris did an exceptional job. I mean, I think that it's one of the best places on the planet to host summer games. You just look at those iconic venues, and I was there. And beach volleyball at the Eiffel Tower, and it's just an amazing city. And what they did in terms of the infrastructure and everything was fantastic. So I thought Paris did a really, really good job.
So, Fraser, you began your career at Bain Capital. You were one of the founding partners, I believe, there. And, you are now in the Utah Technology Council Hall of Fame. So your experience also with Sorensen and working with technology companies, bringing them up is really unparalleled, specifically for those out in, the state of Utah. And, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. We've got, Milan in 2026. We got the French Alps in 2030. So we're still a ways away from 2034. But the role that streaming and AI and technology played in the Paris Olympics, I'm just curious to hear if you could even envision what's going to happen, 10 years down the road. I mean, how do you expect it to impact Salt Lake City in the games in 2034?
Yeah, that's a huge unknown, but a big part of my career has been in technology, and I see the rapid advancement that we're all experiencing, and we're just on the cusp of some really big performance improvements relative to computing power and AI on top of that. So we're actually going to start designing early on our architecture, our technology architecture in November, based on what we see today, but where we think it's going to be going. But we know we're going to be wrong by some measure because things just change so fast and it's exciting, but we will embrace it along the way. But we'll probably lock down our systems about 2 years out because you don't want to have bleeding edge technology because it has to work. So we'll take advantage of all the improvements, but then we'll lock it in enough in advance that we can be certain that we'll deliver a stable, fantastic experience from the technology.
I mean, are we going to see, like avatars of Jamie Lynn and Craig Kelly and snowboarding? I mean, like, seriously, I mean, what can we really, think about this, Michael Barr, 10 years down the road, what kind of world we're going to be living in there?
As it applies to the games, I think there are a couple of areas that we're really interested in. Number one is transportation systems. Who knows what they're going to look like 10 years from now, but we want them to be more sustainable, more public, and whether it be self-driving vehicles, we suspect so. But so our transportation system could be totally different from what we've experienced in the past. Another area that I just think of opening and closing ceremonies, which are iconic for the games, and that's where your avatars or different things may show up. Because I looked at the closing ceremonies of Paris, and I was thrilled with what I saw, but said, wow, could we take this to a new level utilizing technology and drones and 3D avatars and things like that? It could be pretty mind-blowing.
And whatever movie Tom Cruise is going to be in, use him too. I was really impressed with Tom Cruise in the closing ceremonies because, and I'm looking at the shot, and you talk about this with the drone. He has to just say, okay, I'm going to trust you, and just drop off this high platform. And bless his heart, he did it. I got to give it to him. So, but again,
I can catch Michael Barr jumping off the mountain in Park City.
Well, that's after I lost a hand playing poker. But I know we're running out of time. But really quickly, Fraser, I want to bring up again that you guys have worked very hard for this, for the Salt Lake City, Utah Committee for the Games to come in Salt Lake City. And can you give a quick shout out to the Paralympics, because that's exciting to watch also?
Well, the Paralympics is one of my favorite things because these athletes, these are world-class athletes that have overcome disabilities and are amazing. And actually one of my favorite things, if not my favorite, from 2002 was the gold medal sled hockey game, USA versus Norway, where this team had no money from the U.S. They were the worst in the world, but they rented ice time in the middle of the night, the only time they could afford it, and they come to the U.S. or they come to Utah, and they win game after game after game. They go in the gold medal game, and it's tied at the end of regulation. The place is going wild, and then they go into overtime and it stays tied. Then they go to a shootout and Team USA wins in the shootout. And it was just, I looked at those athletes and what they did, what they accomplished, what they've overcome in their lives. And we had a theme of light the fire within to inspire each of us to do better. And boy, did they exemplify that in the ultimate sense.
Fraser Bullock, President and CEO of Salt Lake City, Utah Committee for the Games, because they have won the venue for the 2034 Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games. We appreciate your time, sir. Thank you again for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. We're here each and every week at the same time. For my colleagues, Scarlet Fu, yay, and Damian Sassower, yay, I'm Michael Barr. Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big money in the world of sports. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.